Have you ever noticed how quickly people start doing the same things? One day, a certain opinion is everywhere, a style suddenly becomes popular, or a new idea spreads across social media like wildfire. And almost overnight, it feels like everyone is moving in the same direction. But now and then, you meet someone who doesn't seem affected by any of it. They don't rush to join the trend, they don't copy what everyone else is doing, and they seem completely comfortable walking a different path. It makes you wonder, what is different about the psychology of people who don't follow the crowd? Now here's something important to understand. Following the crowd is actually one of the most natural behaviors in human psychology. For thousands of years, survival depended on staying connected to the group. If everyone in the tribe ran from danger, you ran too. If the group believed something was safe or dangerous, questioning it could put your life at risk. Because of this history, our brains developed powerful instincts that push us toward conformity. Psychologists call this phenomenon social conformity. It's the tendency for individuals to adjust their behavior, opinions, and decisions to match those around them. In fact, research shows that people often conform even when they know the group is wrong. Our brains are wired to seek acceptance, avoid rejection, and maintain harmony within the social group. One famous experiment by psychologist Solomon Asch revealed just how strong this pressure can be. Participants were shown simple lines and asked to identify which ones were the same length. The correct answer was obvious, but when actors in the room intentionally gave the wrong answer, many participants went along with them anyway. Even though they could clearly see the truth, they chose the group's answer over their own judgment. Think about that for a moment. The fear of standing out can be so powerful that people sometimes ignore what they know to be true. This is the invisible psychological force that trends rely on. When enough people adopt something, it creates the impression that following along is the safest and most normal choice. But here's where things become interesting. Some people seem naturally resistant to this pressure. While others quickly adopt the latest opinions, styles, or behaviors, these individuals pause. They observe, they think, and often they decide not to participate. It's not because they want to be rebellious or different for the sake of it. Their minds simply operate from a different psychological foundation. One major factor behind this is a strong internal sense of identity. People who don't follow the crowd often have clearer personal values and beliefs. Instead of constantly looking outward for validation, they rely more on internal guidance. Their decisions are shaped by what feels authentic to them, rather than what happens to be popular at the moment. Now here's something fascinating from neuroscience. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for reasoning and decision-making, plays a key role in resisting social pressure. When this region is highly active, people are more likely to pause before conforming. They evaluate situations logically rather than reacting automatically to social cues. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever met someone who seems perfectly comfortable holding an unpopular opinion? They don't panic when others disagree. They don't rush to change their views just to fit in. That calm confidence often comes from a psychological independence that many people slowly develop over time. But here's the paradox. People who don't follow the crowd are often misunderstood. Others might assume they're stubborn, arrogant, or trying to be different on purpose. In reality, most of the time, they're simply being honest with themselves. Their goal isn't to reject the group. Their goal is to stay authentic. Another pattern often appears in these individuals. They tend to observe more than they react. Instead of immediately adopting what everyone else believes, they step back and watch how ideas spread. They pay attention to how opinions change, how quickly people switch sides, and how easily trends appear and disappear. This habit of observation leads to a deeper realization. Many trends are not driven by careful thinking, they're driven by momentum. People adopt them simply because they see others doing the same thing. And once enough people join in, it creates the illusion that the trend must be correct or meaningful. However, resisting the crowd is not always easy. Humans are deeply social creatures, and our brains release dopamine when we feel accepted by others. When someone chooses not to follow the group, they may sometimes feel isolated or misunderstood. Friends might question their choices, and society may pressure them to conform. Because of this, people who don't follow the crowd often develop a quiet strength, comfort with solitude. They learn that it's okay to stand alone sometimes. They become less dependent on approval and more focused on personal integrity. This doesn't mean they reject connection with others, it simply means their identity isn't defined by group pressure. And here's the surprising insight. Throughout history, many innovators, creators, and independent thinkers shared this exact trait. They questioned ideas that everyone else accepted. They explored possibilities others ignored. At first, their perspectives often seemed strange or unpopular, but later, those same perspectives changed the way people understood the world. Of course, not everyone who avoids trends becomes a revolutionary thinker, but the underlying psychology is still powerful. It reflects a willingness to think independently, to question assumptions, and to remain curious even when everyone else seems certain. In today's world, where social media constantly amplifies popular opinions, this kind of independence has become even more rare. Algorithms show us what most people are liking, sharing, and believing. Over time, it can create the illusion that the crowd is always right. But people who step back from that noise often gain a clearer perspective. So the next time you notice someone who doesn't follow the crowd, consider the possibility that something deeper is happening. They might not be trying to stand apart, they might simply be thinking for themselves. And sometimes, the courage to think independently is one of the most powerful psychological traits a person can develop.